Welcome to 340B Leaders Upfront, a new monthly podcast from 340B Report. I'm Anna Mangum, host of this new program, which showcases 340B Report's valued sponsors and the crucial role they play in the 340B ecosystem. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing to 340B Report by going to 340breport.com and using the coupon code podcast25 to receive a 25% discount. If you haven't heard prior episodes, here's a little bit about me. I've dedicated my career to promoting healthcare access, quality, and equity. I've been a senior leader with a variety of major national advocacy and trade organizations, including 340B Health, where I work closely with 340B Report publisher and CEO Ted Slavsky for over a decade. In this exciting new episode of 340B Leaders Upfront, I chat with executive leaders of Nuvem, CEO Scott Seidelmann, and Chief Customer Officer Brenda Berry. Nuvem, founded in 2013 as 340B Basics and rebranded as Nuvem in 2023 to reflect a broader mission, offers solutions in pharmacy management, 340B technology, and compliance, customized for community health centers, small hospitals, and other federal grantees. We're very grateful to Nuvem for being a diamond sponsor of 340B Report and delighted that they will be an Ultra Diamond sponsor in 2026. We appreciate their investment in 340B Report, which helps us to educate our subscribers and listeners on 340B developments. Today, we'll catch up with Scott and Brenda and learn more about their careers, the solutions that Nuvem provides, the current and emerging challenges and opportunities in the 340B space, and what they might mean for 340B stakeholders. Welcome, Scott and Brenda, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
So to start things off, we'd like our listeners to learn a bit about your respective backgrounds. Scott, you received your BA in English at Cornell University. I wanted to let you know that our publisher and CEO Ted Slavsky's dad, Fred, actually graduated from Cornell. And Ted says to pass along the message, go Big Red. Tell us more about this experience and where you grew up.
I doubt that I ran into Ted's dad on the quad anywhere, but it was a great experience. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. My dad's a physician, was a physician. I went to school and studied pre-med and thought I would be a doctor as well. And so I became an EMT and quickly thereafter decided that I hated the sight of blood. And my father was very helpful in saying that there's a lot of other ways to participate in medicine and healthcare other than being a doctor. And so I wouldn't say I actually switched gears per se, other than, I think I enjoy reading and writing. And so for me, it was English or history or art history or something like that. And I chose English. And so it was a great college experience. Really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Brenda, you received your BA in economics and German at the University of Notre Dame. You spent a few semesters studying international economics in beautiful Innsbruck, Austria. Tell us more about where you grew up and your educational background.
Sure, absolutely. So not that far from Scott. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And, I think Pittsburgh has this interesting mix, right, of blue collar, former steel town, and that really reinvented itself into tech and healthcare. And I think that naturally inspired my future career interests. At Notre Dame, I studied economics because I've always been fascinated by how incentives drive behavior, whether that's in markets or organizations or with people. And then studying in Innsbruck, Austria really added that additional global perspective. And it's also just an outstandingly beautiful place. So great place to spend a few semesters in college.
Yes, incredibly beautiful. I hope to get there someday myself. Scott, you took the reins as CEO at Nuvem last year, having spent more than 25 years in healthcare and pharmacy technology and services firms. You founded and led 3 startups in radiology. Most recently, you were an executive leader at Omnicell, a pharmacy technology leader. Tell us a bit more about the evolution of your career, including your work in 340B.
Yeah, I as I mentioned, my father's a physician. I thought I wanted to do something in healthcare and medicine, and eventually ended up starting a business with my father that was a telemedicine business, bringing basically specialty radiology access to rural hospitals, small clinics to improve quality of care access, and grew that business and sold that business, and then started a software company that was basically building radiology software to help physicians, radiologists in particular, do their job more efficiently, improve quality, et cetera. And after we sold that business, I joined Omnicell, which was in the pharmacy space, which was my first entry to pharmacy, and then helped Omnicell over a 6-year period transform from being kind of a pure medical device business to being a medical device plus software and services business. And I've always been fascinated with this intersection of technology and care delivery. And I think father's a physician, my wife's a physician, and just watch the noble, incredible work that they do. It is so hard to be a physician. It is just very complex. There's so many moving parts. There are so many different systems. It's your classic, like, good people doing extremely good work with terrible processes and sort of being encumbered. And so you add to that the notion of a primary care physician working in a critical access hospital serving an underserved population, and that challenge just becomes incredibly more complex. And so the 6 years at Omnicell, I decided I love pharmacy. I think it's such an important portion of medicine. I think there are a ton of challenges with it. It is certainly one area of medicine that touches every patient in every setting of care and does largely an amazing amount of good. And I think that this intersection between pharmacy and 340B, which 340B, which is now 30-ish years old, no one thought that 30 years later it would be a substantial funding mechanism for clinics and hospitals and physicians to provide care, but it is. And it's not paid for by taxpayers. It's funded essentially by drug manufacturers. And I think that sort of how I got to Nuvem was really always liked the community health center space, the safety net providers, and truly understood that pharmacy is an incredibly important clinical service line for them to touch more patients, provide more care. I mean, these are not big cancer hospitals. These are not surgical hospitals. They're primary care physicians treating 31 million Americans who are largely underserved. And pharmacy is the one area that community health center can deliver far better care. It actually also happens to be, because of 340B, one of the few service lines that generates meaningful savings. And those savings can be reinvested back into care delivery, whether it's translation services or it is women's health or it is dental services. And so Nuvem is well positioned in that FQHC space. We don't believe that the pharmacy care delivery model in community health centers and safety net has been fully optimized to improve the quality of care and generate savings that can be reinvested. And there's a significant requirement for technology and data to help them optimize that. And so you kind of brought all those three things together and sort of appealing to my entrepreneurial wanting to fix healthcare. It was a natural fit. And a year later, I couldn't be more happy to be here. Certainly have been inspired by the customers and their mission, and then simultaneously inspired by the teammates like Brenda and others at Nuvem that are so passionate at helping these community health centers and FQs just solve really, really important problems and keep the doors open. So it's been a great career, but I feel like Nuvem has just been this great culmination of a series of interests that, it's been just a really exciting place to be.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, 340B is definitely a very intersectional part of healthcare and pharmacy. And we'll talk more about that as we continue here. Brenda, you too have more than 25 years of experience in healthcare and pharmacy with a focus on sales and customer engagement. This includes stints at Ericsson, McKesson, and Omnicell. Tell us about how your career has unfolded, including in the 340B space.
Sure. So my career also started in technology, worked at 4Systems, a Carnegie Mellon founded startup, right when the internet backbone was being developed. And it was all about networks and connectivity, which I think turns out to be a great foundation for healthcare because so much of what we do depends on data flow and integration. And then 20 years ago, I started at McKesson and learned the operational side of pharmacy. So was first exposed there to 340B, supply chain, reimbursement, compliance. And then also at Omnicell, then shifted into automation and tech-enabled services, helping health systems use technology to manage medications more safely and efficiently. And so I think the common thread across all of it is really how to use data and technology to remove friction for pharmacists, for providers, and ultimately for patients. And that's what drew me to Nuvem, really bringing those lessons into this mission-driven space where the goal is to help our safety net providers sustain care in their communities.
Nuvem is headquartered in a suburb south of Philadelphia, but I know you have staff all over the country who are located close to your clients. How many staff do you have, and what's unique about your team?
We have about 300 teammates at Nuvem. Roughly 100 of those teammates are clinicians actually operating in pharmacies at community health centers, and that's the fastest growing portion of Nuvem. We are, in addition, back to this point about the intersection of care delivery and technology, a third of our employees are in the technology function, whether or not it's software engineers, product engineers, and or product managers. And we can talk more about sort of what it is that we do. But yeah, it's a team that is well aligned with a mission of being the community health center's most trusted partner, and a vision that pharmacy can help them deliver better care more efficiently. And so it's nice to see such a diverse group brought together and aligned around that.
Along the lines of, the team and what they're delivering, tell us about Nuvem Solutions and what makes them distinctive in the 340B marketplace.
So today, strategically, we are focused on being a long-term strategic partner to community health centers and other safety net providers to help them optimize their pharmacy care delivery for better outcomes, better access, and better savings. And we do that today with a unique portfolio of products and services that combines TPA, which helps covered entities manage their contract pharmacy, with pharmacy management services, where we'll actually help a community health center or small hospital stand up and operate their own in-house pharmacy. And then a set of services that help covered entities really enable them to capture savings as it relates to referrals, as well as ensuring that their programs remain compliant. And that portfolio, which in its own right is unique, the fact that we can essentially help a community health center across every point of dispense and help them optimize for quality and cost across every point of dispense, as opposed to just being a TPA or just being an in-house pharmacy management company. But I think that in addition to that, there's really 4 reasons that I really like to think that make Nuvem different. One is that we're narrowly focused on FQHCs, Ryan White, safety net providers. We think that their mission and their challenges are very unique and quite distinct. And we believe that specialization just makes us smarter and better and can help them along this journey with its various ups and downs. I think 2 is really that the core functions of what a TPA does, or standing up and operating a pharmacy, or even understanding that, how referral capture works, or running a compliance programs, each one of those things by themselves is really relatively straightforward. It's relatively easy to understand how to do those things. But fundamentally, to optimize a pharmacy care delivery model for a federally qualified healthcare center across contract and in-house and through a specialist referral, that's fundamentally a knowledge business. I mean, really understanding what therapies, patient behavior, provider behavior, health plan rules, state laws and regulations, the various changing landscape of 340B, the impact of IRA and rebates and the manufacturer blocks and what that means for drug X if they block it with a contract pharmacy. Well, what happens with their rule if you bring it in-house? It just never stops changing, and it's incredibly complicated. And if you actually sat down and said, God, how would I really optimize around this? You'd have to hire analysts and consultants, and you'd have to go buy software, and you'd have to, pay consultants to regulate, to understand what's happening next, et cetera. Well, because we are 300 employees, and because we've done this for over a decade, and we've managed millions and millions of scripts across 300 or so existing customers, we're curating all of that knowledge. And we have a team of experts that we've organized now, and Brenda can chat a bit more about it, but we've organized now into a single function that has the advantage of looking across our entire customer base and learning from what works and what doesn't work across that entire customer base, curating that knowledge into data warehouse, and then exporting that insight and that information back out to the customers with, hey, you should really look at X, or maybe you should change your formulary to accommodate X, or Ohio Medicaid just changed its reimbursement rate for X, and you might look for formulary options. Or did you know if you bring that drug through your in-house pharmacy, that will unlock savings that you're not capturing because it's been blocked with the contract pharmacy? It just never stops. And so this idea that in order to fully optimize a program, you really need two things. You need that knowledge and you need to be organized there. And we're now sort of organizing that business intelligence and data analytics and data warehouse into a group that we call Mission Control. And secondly, you need software that isn't readily available in the market. The reality is that there isn't software designed to analyze an existing program, identify opportunities across various TPAs, across in-house, understand patient behavior and provider behavior, and then start to automate these workflows, which is really all about how do you get a patient on therapy. And so we call that proprietary software platform that we've built through acquisition, through a company we acquired earlier this year called Nuvem, as well as I mentioned, our 100 or so engineering teammates that are focused on continuing to invest in that. And so we believe that this combination of a focus on FQs and community health centers and continued investment in an analytics and knowledge function that we call Mission Control, as well as a proprietary software platform, the combination of those three things just makes us incredibly unique and differentiated. And, the good news with something like that is that, with every new dispense and with every new customer that joins Nuvem, we get smarter and smarter, and every customer benefits from that.
It is really breathtaking, the amount of information, data, trends, all the things that people in healthcare, professionals in healthcare, and specifically in 340B have to be on top of. And of course, all of this is always changing as well. It's a very stimulating area to work in, but it's also, for those reasons, a lot. It's a heavy lift. So incredible platform that you offer. And thanks for those details. You mentioned Nuvem, a leading pharmacy analytics provider for community health centers. Do you want to say more about what inspired this move? What capabilities you have that you can offer now based on that acquisition?
Yeah, as I mentioned, that we believe that fully optimizing a pharmacy care delivery model for quality and access and cost or savings requires sort of a vast set of knowledge, data, analysis, insights, and we didn't have that capability internally. And we were very fortunate enough to meet the folks at Nuvem, who had spent the last handful of years building a software platform that today is all about insights. It's all about giving leaders of today, primarily FQHCs, CFOs and CEOs, the C-suite, real insights into how is their pharmacy care delivery model working? Are they touching as many patients as they could? Are they supporting their physicians in the way that they should be? How do they compare to other customers just like them? And so that benchmarking capability. And so we just felt that was very much the direction and the belief of where we were headed and areas that we wanted to invest. And we just felt a deeper partnership made a ton of sense. And so we were delighted and super excited to have the Nuvem team join us. And now we've taken their platform and we've repositioned it, and we'll announce it shortly to the market as a software platform called Apollo. And then we'll continue to invest very heavily in that.
Terrific. Well, can you share a couple of notable client success stories?
Sure, absolutely. One that comes to mind is an FQHC here in rural Pennsylvania, and they opened their first entity-owned pharmacy about a year ago with our help. And they've seen a tremendous impact, not only financially, but also with care access. So, for example, patients who used to wait days to fill prescription can now walk across the hall and get their medication right after their visit. And for the health center, it really means then being able to reinvest back into community programs. And for this particular client, that meant for them, they were able to offer translation services, transportation, and that really has had a big impact on the community. And I think that's what really motivates us here at Nuvem.
Yeah, that mission orientation, or the 340B mission, is very, very compelling to pretty much everybody who works in this space, no matter how they found themselves working in it, and is what motivates their day-to-day work and contributions. You mentioned earlier, Scott, the changes kind of in terms of the regulatory and policy environment. A major concern for providers right now is the possibility of shifting the 340B program from an upfront discount to a rebate model. A pilot of this model focusing on 10 selected drugs is expected to begin on January 1st, 2026. As you know, covered entities would need to front the costs of high-cost drugs in exchange for a theoretical post-purchase rebate, rather than being afforded the discounted 340B pricing at the time of purchase. What do you see as the implications of this very consequential development for your clients, and how are you supporting them?
I don't know. I feel like I'm still a baby in 340B land. It's only been 8 years that I've been in there, 6 years that I've been in, 6 or 7 years that I've been in the space. And what I will say is that there essentially is two constants in 340B, which is that one, it does generate meaningful savings that providers of all sizes, particularly FQHCs, just continue to reinvest back in care delivery and necessary services. And short of that, those savings, you can see example after example of an FQHC or even some of these larger hospitals that just wouldn't be able to keep their doors open without those savings, right? And so that's one constant. The second constant is that it's constantly changing, right? there's always something new, right? And I think the HRSA rebate pilot. So first off, there's kind of two rebate models out there right now. There's a rebate on the IRA drugs for Medicare specifically. That is important and that's meaningful. I think the workflow is complex. We understand the workflow. We'll be rolling out the ability to support that type of workflow. I think these initial 10 IRA drugs have a pretty de minimis impact on the revenues or savings from what we've seen. I think it's low single digits. We'll have to see how that plays out. There's still absolutely 340B savings under the IRA drugs purchased in the IRA program, but we'll have to see how that plays out over time. But our job and where we can be helpful is being very clear with the customer on sort of how it impacts them, where it impacts them, what formulary options they might have, as well as the technology to be able to manage the workflow, all of which we're on top of. I think the HRSA rebate, which is basically HRSA allowing 9 drug manufacturers for those same 10 drugs to, as you pointed out, essentially flip the funds flow. To say you have to pay WAC for the drug, and then you'll submit a claim to me. And provided that I haven't actually already given that discount to someone else, I, being the drug manufacturer, will then rebate you the delta between the WAC price and the 340B price, et cetera, right? And so also complex workflow, also workflow that we understand and will be rolling out shortly to support. I think this is really a cash flow issue that we need to figure out for the covered entity, right? Which is simply that they're now outlaying the full price of the drug up front and then waiting a period of time for that delta to come back. The unknown is really what is the amount of time, right? HRSA is designated, you have 10 to 12 days for drug manufacturers to give it. But the unknown is the initial conversion. You have to build up accumulations, and how long does that take before you have replenishment of the drug, et cetera. And so we're very actively working with customers to try and understand for them what that cash flow means and ways that we can support them through that. The very least of which is what we found is that it's very helpful for customers to be able to actually share the details specific to them. What would be the cash flow implications? Once the model resets and you align, WAC outflows with rebate inflows coming back in, a provider should mathematically see the same cash flow implications on a period basis that they would have had prior to the rebate model. It's just going to be, is this reset from a working cap perspective? Is that 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days? How many days do they have to float before they'll get their payments back from the drug man? And that's just an unknown. No one knows that. But like I said, I think that this is a scary thing that has cash flow implications. I think the reality of it, whether or not it happens or doesn't happen, I think the 340B program is a critical funding source for almost every provider in the United States. And that this will be a change that the industry will absorb through partnership with folks like Nuvem and other TPAs and other consultants. And, our job is to help manage our customer like a Sherpa through the process. And that's what we'll do.
Great analogy. Yeah, these definitely are, they feel like Everest or higher mountains. There is another mountain, which is contract pharmacy restrictions. So contract pharmacy programs remain under pressure with about 40 drug manufacturers imposing restrictions. Although a number of states have recently passed protections in this area, many covered entities are located in states without this relief, and the restrictions remain even for some covered entities that have passed protections. Is this a challenge on which Nuvem is focusing? And if so, how are you supporting customers in this area?
I think manufacturer blocks were the quote unquote rebate crisis of 21, 22 in hospitals, and then more or less rolled forward to FQs in 23, 24. And essentially what's happened is that drug manufacturers would block a drug and say you could have one contract pharmacy or designate, or you have to submit your information through ESP. And that took a long time for TPAs and others to support those workflows, to understand what the implications are, et cetera. There's been two mitigating factors, I would say. One is that as savings opportunity is diminished in the contract pharmacy side of a community health center or small hospital, that's driven demand for an in-house pharmacy, or what we would say is managing your pharmacy program far more comprehensively or holistically than just contract pharmacy. But then that creates a new problem, which is that the way that many of the manufacturer block regs are written is that as soon as you have an in-house, you can't fill that drug through contract pharmacy. So you have to be very careful, and you've got to be eyes wide open. Again, something that we can help customers through that transition, help them understand that. And then as these regs constantly change, help them figure out, well, which drug should you have on formulary in the in-house? What should you fill in-house? What should you fill through contract pharmacy? It's just this ongoing balance. And requires that ongoing consultative customer-facing motion that I talked about before. The second mitigating fact is that, again, back to the point that is a testament that the 340B program provides a vital or crucial financing mechanism for safety net providers of all sizes and shapes in the United States. I think over 20 or 21 states have now passed laws that block manufacturer blocks. And now recently, several courts have upheld those laws in the face of manufacturer. So I think you're starting to see that the manufacturer block was the challenge or the storm clouds in the industry 3 years ago. And now that's starting to work its way through. And I think we'll see the rebates do the same thing.
So what are some other 340B related developments or trends that you're monitoring?
There's a lot. I think to your point, rebates, IRAs are top of the list, and making sure that we're prepared to support those, which we are and certainly will be. You know, there's a lot going on in pharmacy right now, and I think tracking most favored nation and the various EOs related to various pricing proposals from the government. So
you mean executive orders there?
Executive orders, sorry, yeah. So I think that again, that's point at why trying to manage this program or these programs yourself or relying exclusively on software is so difficult, because you need to be constantly aware of what's going on and figure out the signal from the noise. What matters? How's it going to impact us? Are there ways that we can mitigate it? What can we do about it? And again, that's why I come back to one of the areas that we've done well and we're investing heavily in is this team of experts that have expertise across regulatory, pharmacy operations, 340B, that will analyze these trends, these challenges, and then communicate back out through Brenda's customer organization to the customers as to what they should be focused on, what they shouldn't be focused on. And so there's a lot out there. Again, our job is to help the clients manage their way through a lot of that noise.
Well, thank you so much for that. This has been wonderful in terms of the description that you've provided of kind of how you guide people, help them navigate these mountains. Do you have any additional words of wisdom for the 340B community?
You know, the 340B community has become the majority of providers in the United States, back to the point that, you know, particularly the safety net and particularly FQHCs, these are social workers trying to solve very, very meaningful, important problems in their community. And they're doing really incredible work. I mean, in many respects, they're the flag bearers for what medicine should be in a lot of settings. And so, you know, for better or worse, the 340B program has evolved into a major, if not the major, financing source, which enables them to do that. And it's not it's not funded by taxpayers. And so my message to the community would be hang in there. I think that short of reforming the entire payment system, which seems far unlikely, I would stay true to your mission, stay focused on treating your patients. And I think the 340B program will be there for you for a very, very long time to enable you to continue to provide great care to the people who need it the most.
Well, that's so eloquent. Thank you both, Scott and Brenda, today for your passionate description of not only 340B, but also, of course, your firm and the great value that you offer. And that concludes this podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to having you join us for our next podcast. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing to 340B Report by going to 340breport.com and using the coupon code podcast25 to receive a 25% discount. It's the best way to stay on top of the latest developments in the ever-changing 340B program. Also, check out our other podcast, Inside 340B Report, to hear our journalists discuss the latest 340B developments.